When you woke up this morning, what did you do first? Did you hop in the shower, check your email, or grab a donut from the kitchen counter? Did you brush your teeth before or after you toweled off? Which route did you draw to work? When you got home, did you put on your sneakers and go for a run, or pour yourself a drink and eat dinner in front of the TV? All our life, so far as it has definite form, is but a mass of habits. Most of the choices we make each day may feel like the products of well-considered decision-making, but they're not. They're habits. And though each habit means relatively little on its own, over time, the meals we order, whether we save or spend, how often we exercise, and the way we organize our thoughts and work routines have enormous impacts on our health, productivity, financial security, and happiness. One paper published by a Duke University researcher in 2006 found that more than 40% of the actions people performed each day weren't actual decisions, but habits. In this video, we are going to cover bestseller book Power of Habit. If you're new to the channel and you haven't subscribed the channel, then kindly subscribe it. 1. How habits emerge. Scientists say habits emerge because the brain is constantly looking for ways to save effort. Left to its own devices, the brain will try to make almost any routine into a habit, because habits allow our minds to ramp down more often. This effort-saving instinct is a huge advantage. An efficient brain requires less room, which makes for a smaller head, which makes childbirth easier and therefore causes fewer infant and mother deaths. An efficient brain also allows us to stop thinking constantly about basic behaviors, such as walking and choosing what to eat, so we can devote mental energy to inventing spears, irrigation systems, and eventually airplanes and video games. In the book, Duhigg describes a series of experiments run by researchers at MIT on the science of habit formation. The researchers were running these experiments on groups of rats, dropping them into mazes and making them sniff around for a piece of chocolate placed at the end. They wanted to monitor brain activity in the rats as they moved about the maze, so they inserted super tiny microsensors in their brains. This helped the researchers determine which parts of the brain would light up when the rats were running through the maze, which would help them understand how the brain forms habits. So they begin the experiment. And at first, it seemed like the rats weren't really doing anything interesting at all. They'd start at the beginning of the maze, sniff around, scratch the walls a bit, and randomly pause every now and then before moving through the maze again. But then the researchers noticed something big. Each time the rats moved from one end of the maze to the other, they sniffed around a little less, scratched the walls a little less, and paused a little less, thus moving through the maze faster and faster with each run. After running the rats through the maze several times, they learned that the mental activity decreased in the rats with each successful navigation through the maze. As the route became more and more automatic, the rats were actually thinking less about how to get through the maze. No more sniffing, scratching, and pausing necessary. Now they could speed from start to finish hardly without thinking at all. The researchers found that this automaticity in the rats relied on a part of the brain called the basal ganglia, which took over as the rat ran faster and faster, and its brain worked less and less. The basal ganglia was central to recalling patterns and acting on them. In other words, it's responsible for storing habits even while the rest of the brain falls asleep. And your brain works the same way. This process is called chunking, and it plays a primary role in how habits form. With chunking, the brain converts a sequence of actions, like brushing your teeth, tying your shoes, or backing your car into the garage, into an automatic routine. Bottom line, habits emerge because our brains are always on the lookout for efficient ways to save effort. 2. The habit loop, cue plus routine plus reward. This process within our brains is a three-step loop. First, there is a cue, a trigger that tells your brain to go into automatic mode and which habit to use. Then there is the routine, which can be physical or mental or emotional. Finally, there is a reward, which helps your brain figure out if this particular loop is worth remembering for the future. If you want to create new habits of any kind, keep the following formula in mind. Cue plus routine plus reward equals habit. New habits depend on this three-step loop. The cue, a trigger for your brain that tells it which habit to use. The routine, how a habit influences what you do, think, or feel. The reward, which helps us determine how valuable the habit is and whether it's worth remembering or not. You begin by choosing a cue, like keeping your gym shoes by the door. Then you choose a clear reward, like a smoothie after each workout. Finally, you allow yourself to anticipate that reward. by thinking about the smoothie you'll get to enjoy once you're done crushing it in the gym. The simple addition of a craving could be what makes the difference between whether you get up and hit the gym or hit snooze and bury yourself back under the sheets. Cravings drive habits, and figuring out what sparks your cravings is what can make creating a habit easier for you. 3. Find a cue, plus define the rewards. If you want to start running each morning, it's essential that you choose a simple cue, like always lacing up your sneakers before breakfast or leaving your running clothes next to your bed, and a clear reward, such as a midday treat, a sense of accomplishment from recording your miles, or the endorphin rush you get from a jog. But countless studies have shown that a cue and a reward, on their own, aren't enough for a new habit to last. Only when your brain starts expecting the reward, craving the endorphins or sense of accomplishment, will it become automatic to lace up your jogging shoes each morning. The cue, in addition to triggering a routine, must also trigger a craving for the reward to come. The key to creating habits is based on a simple formula any one of us can adopt. 4. The golden rule of habit change. Tony Dungy, the only coach in NFL history to reach the playoffs in 10 consecutive years. Dungy's success was not creating new habits. It was about changing old ones. And the way he did that was by using what was already in his players' heads. As we now know, habits are based on a 3-step loop: the cue, the routine, and the reward. But Dungy was only focused on one of those steps, the routine. He knew it was easier to persuade someone to do something different, to adopt a new behavior, if there was already something familiar at the beginning and end. Which brings us back to the rule. If you use the same cue and provide the same reward, you can shift the routine and change the habit. Almost any behavior can be transformed if the cue and reward stay the same. 5. Leverage keystone habits. Some habits have the power to start a chain reaction, changing other habits as they move through an organization. Some habits, in other words, matter more than others in remaking businesses and lives. These are keystone habits, and they can influence how people work, play, live, spend, and communicate. Keystone habits start a process that, over time, transforms everything. Keystone habits are like the 80-20th principle. It's in identifying the vital few that can have the greatest net impact on everything else. Studies show that waking up and making your bed every morning can lead to higher levels of productivity throughout the day. Studies also show that families that eat dinner together raise children with better grades, giving credence to the old axiom, a family that eats together stays together. It's not that making your bed leads to more productivity or eating dinner with mom and dad leads to making the honor roll. It's that these habits create chain reactions that help other good habits take hold, and that's why they're called keystone habits. As Duhigg tells us in the book, where should a would-be habit master start? Understanding keystone habits holds the answer to that question. The habits that matter most are the ones that, when they start to shift, dislodge and remake other patterns. This was the complete summary of the book Power of Habits. The bottom line we can draw from this book is, habits is a 3-step process. Number 1 is cue or trigger, and then it comes routine, which is the main part of any habit. And finally, it gives sense of reward. If you want to change or get rid of any bad habit, then you must either change the cue or try to modify the routine. Thank you for watching the video.